How's everybody doing this evening? I got Richard Sterban on the line with the Oak Ridge Boys. How's it going, man?
Well, it's going very, very well, and it's certainly a pleasure to be able to talk to your fine listeners out there this morning. I really, really appreciate that.
Well, it's an honor getting to talk to you. You know, you guys have been around for a long time, and, you know, I listened to you growing up. I remember, you know, probably 5, 6 years old listening to Elvira and Bobby Sue. So I did some research last night and found out that the Oak Ridge Boys, the band actually, was it formed in 1945?
Well, that's great. You know, we go back to the Second World War for sure. You know, and believe it or not, there was a group known as the Georgia Clodhoppers. That's hard to believe.
Really?
But they would actually go to Oak Ridge, Tennessee, where they were actually working on the development of the atomic bomb. It was called the Manhattan Project. And as a result of going there and entertaining these people, you know, they could not leave because, well, you know, this was top secret stuff they were working on. So these guys would go all the time to Oak Ridge, and they changed their name. They became to the Oak Ridge Quartet. It became known as the Oak Ridge Quartet, and that was like the forerunning group to our present day Oak Ridge Boys. You know, and they sang as the Oak Ridge Quartet, sang on the Grand Ole Opry back in those days, and they sang up until about the middle 1950s as the Oak Ridge Quartet. The group was then disbanded and then reorganized a few years later with younger guys, and they changed the name to Oak Ridge Boys. None of us are from that reorganized group either, I'm happy to report.
Oh, okay. I didn't know.
Yeah, William Lee Golden was the first guy to join the Oak Ridge Boys out of the present day lineup. He joined in 1965. And then Dwayne Allen came in 1966. I joined in 1972. And then Joe Bonzo came 1 year later after me in 1973. So we've been singing, you know, together as this foursome since 1973, with the exception of a few years, you know, when William Lee Golden was not with us. So we've been together for close to 40 years. So it's pretty you know, mind-boggling in a lot of ways to look back on a great career that we've been able to have over all these years.
Right, and still putting out great tunes too. You know, we got what you.
Well, thank you.
Now I was looking around last night, and I seen a lot of good things on you. But you actually, is it true that you actually sang backup for Elvis?
Yeah, well, I mentioned I joined the Oak Ridge Boys in 1972, and prior to that, for about a year and a half, almost 2 years, I sang in a group called J.D. Sumner and the Stamps Quartet, and I sang vocal backup to Elvis. I was actually in the last movie that Elvis ever made called Elvis on Tour, and I was on several of his records that he recorded back then. Probably the most well-known is a song called Burning Love, a hunk of burning love.
Right, okay.
I was singing on that song, and, you know, he recorded a double album set, you know, live in Madison Square Garden back during that time, and I was on that as well, and you know, just had a great time, you know, working with Elvis, you know, but when the Oak Ridge Boys offered me the job, you know, it was a major decision, you know, to say the least. Here I was singing with Elvis, you know, I was part of the biggest music tour and, you know, going at the time, but when the Oak Ridge Boys called me up, I felt like the group had a great deal of potential. I was a big fan of the groups, right. and so then when they called me up and asked me if I wanted the job, I really, even though I was singing with Elvis, I really I jumped at the chance to become an Oak Ridge Boy, and I think I made a pretty good decision.
Oh yeah, you did.
Yeah.
Well, now what artists inspired you as you was growing up and getting into your music career?
Well, you know, I think several artists did, you know, and I think, you know, Elvis comes right at the top of that list. You know, even before I sang with Elvis, I was a fan of Elvis's, you know, and I think one of the main reasons I was a fan of Elvis's was because he had like the Jordanaires singing on all his records. He always had a quartet with a bass singer, you know, and that kind of a sound really appealed to me, you know, and so I became a huge fan of Elvis's, and then when I was actually able to actually sing with him, that was kind of like the ultimate for me, you know. It really was. So it was a great experience and a great time in my life.
Right. Okay. Well, now you guys have had many collaborations over time, you know, including Paul Simon, George Jones, Johnny Cash, Billy Ray Cyrus, and just the list keeps going. What is it like getting to work with so many great, legends in the music industry and becoming a music icon yourself?
Well, it certainly was a great experience. We working with Paul Simon was a great experience. That was really the first time in our career that we actually sang on a hit record that was actually on the charts. And we sang "Slip Sliding Away," and just to go up to New York City and to work with an artist like Paul Simon, to work with a producer like Phil Ramone. I mean, we were pretty much nobodies at the time, and we were like in high cotton right there. It was really kind of a lot of fun, and I think it was a learning experience for us, to be around Paul Simon, to see how he conducted himself in a recording studio, and just to see the whole process of how he went about to actually create a hit song and a hit record in the studio. I think we learned quite a bit from him, and it was really a learning experience. And it was, first of all, a great honor, that he would even call us to begin with, And then the same thing can be said, about Ray Charles, for example, working with him in the studio was a great experience. And of course, Johnny Cash, there probably would not be an Oak Ridge Boys today without Johnny Cash. He really came into our career and into our lives at a time and a period when we really needed some help, and he provided that for us. His words of encouragement, when we were so discouraged, helped us continue on, and so Johnny Cash, has a great place and a lot of respect, as far as all four of the Oak Ridge Boys are concerned, because he really helped us when we desperately needed some help. So working with him, and as you say, the list goes on and on. We've been able to collaborate with a lot of great artists. George Jones, we just recently were able to participate in his 80th birthday celebration.
Right, yeah, Eric Lee Bedingfield was there too.
And we were able to sing the song that we sang with him years ago, "The Same Old Me."
Really? Okay.
For him, and it was a great honor. It certainly was.
Right, yeah, we caught that. Eric Lee Bedingfield came by the station before that, and he was telling us about it, and I guess that was a real great performance. All the artists got together, and I think it was awesome.
It really was. It was a great night, and we just recently became members of the Grand Ole Opry. Back in August, they made us the newest members of the Grand Ole Opry, and the very first thing that we had to do after becoming official Opry members was to, participate in that George Jones celebration, and it was a great night. It really was.
I bet it was. Now, in 2008, you guys covered a White Stripes song, and you received a lot of raving reviews, real good reviews from the rock world as well as the country music world. What inspired you guys to cover this song?
Well, we worked with a young producer, a young fellow named David Cobb, and he's not even a country producer. He's a rock and roll producer. And, Shooter Jennings, our good friend Shooter, he had a lot to do with this whole project becoming a reality. He introduced us, to David Cobb, and we decided we were going to work with David Cobb, and we actually just felt like it was time to do something a little different. So we just basically put ourselves in his hands, and we told him to lead us and direct us and take us in what musical directions he believed that we should go. And that was one of his suggestions, that we try something different. And we covered the White Stripes song, Seven Nation Army.
Right.
But he wanted us, even though it was something totally different, he still wanted us to stay true to ourselves and to who we were, and not change ourselves. So we basically, sang that song as a vocal group. We did a lot of the instrumental parts vocally, and it made for really a different sound. And it, as you said, that song got us a great deal of attention, all over, not just from country music critics, but rock and roll critics as well.
Right. Well, you guys have kept to the tradition and kept to your roots for all this time, and doing really good with it. When you come out with songs, that we always know what to expect. It's always going to be awesome. But now you look at country music, and in the last 20 years, you see all these changes. And I think it's really good that you guys are still sticking to the roots and doing traditional country.
Well, we do, but I think it's also important to note that we periodically go into the studio and we kind of reinvent ourselves a little bit. We don't. It doesn't mean we change ourselves. We still stay true to who we are, but we still at the same time try to record some music that is relevant to the current marketplace.
Exactly.
Cracker Barrel has allowed us to do that on this last project, even though they wanted us to record some familiar songs, and there are a lot of hit records on there. And as we mentioned, Elvira's on there, and a lot of hit songs that you will recognize. They allowed us to do some new music. And I think, our new single, which I know you are playing right now, What You're Gonna Do, I think is a good example of a new song, but it still sounds like the Oak Ridge Boys. It is still us, and it's that unmistakable sound.
Right. Well, now, in this year, November 2011, you guys released, along with Cracker Barrel, released the What You're Gonna Do, and teamed up with this internet sensation, Keenan Cahill, I believe his name is. And
Keenan Cahill, that's correct, yeah.
Yeah, how did you guys get together with Keenan?
Well, it was the idea of our manager, Jim Halsey. He has some young guys that work in his office, and these young guys are into, all the new things that are happening out there, today, the viral things, everything that's on the internet right now. And it was their suggestion that we hook up with Keenan, and it worked out really well. Keenan, we found out, is a big, and his family, they're big country music fans, and they always wanted to go to the Grand Ole Opry. And so we were able to work it out where Keenan came down when we were performing at the Grand Ole Opry, and he actually performed there at the Opry with us. And then we were able to shoot this video backstage right there at the Grand Ole Opry with Keenan. And he's if anyone, the country music fans may not be that familiar with him, but he is an internet sensation. He really is. Millions and millions and millions of views. And so we got this new song out there, What You're Gonna Do, and it's on the YouTube there with Keenan Cahill, and people are watching it. So it's just another chance for the Oak Ridge Boys to get some exposure in like a different area. It really is.
Right. I think that's awesome. Yeah. Actually, I hadn't heard of him until last night, and when I was doing research on it, and you're right. He's a huge internet star, and it's pretty cool that you guys did a collaboration with him. I like that.
Yeah, it really is. It's just another example of us trying to reinvent ourselves a little bit and try to stay, abreast of what's happening in the music business.
Right. Well, now, I have a show on Monday nights, and a lot of artists listen in. I'll re-air this interview on Monday night, and what it is a listener review show for new and upcoming artists. And I just wondered if, do you have any advice for the artists who will be listening in, who are working hard to get their music out to the world? This day and age, it's you got so many people trying to do it. Do you have any advice to how to go about that and what they can do?
Well, there's really not a set formula that you can give someone. As you say, you follow this formula, you go from point A to point B to point C, and at the end, you become a successful country music artist. There's not such a thing out there. I can tell you that.
Right.
It's a very difficult business, and and it's a very competitive business. But the best thing I can tell you is that to do the best that you can wherever you are. If you are performing, always perform to the very best of your ability. Always treat people right, and always work on your craft. Develop and become the best that you can be. And if you always are the best that you can be, and you always work as hard as you can work, good things will happen to you. Like I say, everyone that has made it in this business has made it in a different way. So there's not a set way that I can tell you, but just polish, work on your craft, be the best artist that you can be. If you're a songwriter, write the best songs that you can write. Develop your talent, and always do the best that you can be, regardless where you are. And if you do that, I think good things will happen to you.
Okay. All right. Well, the Christmas tour is happening now. You're in Paducah right now, and I hear you're going to Arkansas from Paducah on the 22nd. and then Kansas just after. We've got fans excited about the 22nd date in El Dorado, Arkansas. We're actually giving away tickets and meet and greet tickets to this show. You guys, do you know if you guys are going to have an opening band at that show?
I think it's. I believe it's an evening with the Oak Ridge Boys. So
okay.
You're going to get. We're going to do as many of the hit songs that you expect. We're going to do new music from the new Cracker Barrel CD. We're going to do Elvira. We're going to do as many hits as we possibly can. We may throw in a little gospel music. We're patriotic guys. We may do some songs to honor our troops and our veterans. But just a great night of good country music and good family entertainment. That's really what the Oak Ridge Boys. That's what the Oak Ridge Boys are all about.
Well, yeah, that was going to be my next question about. Can we expect to hear Bobby Sue? Hits, the great hits like Bobby Sue and Elvira.
Oh yeah, you will hear Bobby Sue. You will hear Elvira. You'll hear Y'all Come Back Saloon. Leaving Louisiana in the broad daylight. Thank God for Kids. The songs that you expect to hear from the Oak Ridge Boys will be on the show that night, along with with some of this new music. What you're going to do, we're going to do that as well. And like I said, it's just a little gospel, a little patriotic music, just a great night of good family entertainment.
Okay, all right. Well, I don't want to keep you too long. I know you're real busy. One thing I wanted to ask, can we expect to see more of you guys here in the South before the tour is over?
Well, I don't know. Between now and Christmas, we're slammed. We're almost every night, working on this Christmas. And by the way, the show in El Dorado will not be a Christmas show per se. We may throw in a few Christmas songs. In fact, I think there's probably a pretty good chance that we will. But it's going to be primarily our regular stuff. And I hopefully, next year we're booking our dates for next year now, and they're booking pretty quickly. And hopefully we can, do some more dates, in Arkansas and in Texas especially. We don't get there. It seems like we don't get there as often as we would like to.
Right. Okay. Well, one thing I did forget to say. Now you're well known amongst many things. You're well known for the vocal bass solo in Elvira, I don't think there's an artist known today that can compete with you on the tone and the bass that you can produce in your voice. I was glad to see you come back in what you're going to do with with a similar bass line in it. I really like it.
Well, thank you very much, and once again, thank you for playing that record. We do appreciate that. We don't take that lightly when people are willing to play our record. So thank you very much for doing that.
That's no problem. We like it. Now, so the single is What You're Going to Do, and you'll be in El Dorado, Arkansas on the 22nd of this month, and the website is oakridgeboys.com. Is that right?
That is correct. Anything you need to know or want to know about the Oak Ridge Boys, just go to oakridgeboys.com. If you're on Twitter, follow us on Twitter. We're on Twitter and also on Facebook. You can follow us there as well.
Okay. All right. Well, I sure appreciate you taking time to speak with us. It was an honor speaking with you, and you guys, we're looking forward to your show.
Well, thank you so much. It's Jason, right?
Jason, that's right.
Oh, well, thank you, Jason. I enjoyed talking with you as well, my friend, and appreciate it so much. Thank you.
All right. You have a good one.
Right. Bye now.
Well, guys, that was it. That was Richard Sterban from the Oak Ridge Boys, and he was telling us a little bit about the new single, What You're Going to Do. And I tell you what, he had a lot of stuff, working with Elvis, working with Johnny Cash. Man, it's just amazing the career he has had. And, he's been with the Oak Ridge Boys since 72, and the band, the Oak Ridge Boys, he was telling us, formed around World War II, in the 40s. It's amazing to see a band like that survive this long and still put out great hits that they do today. You guys can check them out on oakridgeboys.com, check them out on Facebook, check them out on Twitter. Keep up with the Christmas tour. Like I said, there's still many more dates to come. And you got to check out this video they did with What You're Going to Do. They teamed up with this internet YouTube sensation, 16-year-old guy. They did a collaboration with him, and it's awesome. You can go to the website, check it out, and find more information. We're going to play, let's see, I got one more Oak Ridge Boys tune we're going to play. I'm working on a building, and we'll see you guys in a little bit.